Hey gang, and welcome to another tutorial with Nanicrypto. As we know, the markets have been quite difficult to trade in, to say the least. Currently got Bitcoin just sitting a little bit over 7K, and it's a very trying time, as I know a lot of people try and trade coins that look like the energy setup and the white's about to cross the blue and everything looks positive and their Bitcoin keeps on dipping and everything breaks. I know we've had a few days of bleeding outs, but I truly believe that times like these when we should be, I guess, trading less and less while we wait for Bitcoin to decide what it's going to do is a great opportunity for you to, I guess, reinforce the basics of trading and the tips and tricks that we need to use to move forward. Today's video, we are going to focus on trending lines, which seems like a pretty important topic in trying to determine bullish and bearish patterns. Definitely make sure you subscribe to our channel. We will be posting a new video regarding what those bearish and bullish patterns are and how we read them and how we see them. So that's going to be our next video. So definitely be looking out for that. But today it's I guess a pre-video to that and just helping people understand how it works. Before I forget, this is not financial advice. Welcome to all the new followers. We've currently got over 1,000 subscribers. Remember, we also have our Twitter account and we've got our Facebook group, also the #1 Bitcoin group in the world, where we post charts and we have a great community there as well. So that's for all the newbies. So without further ado, let's jump over into our charts. And today we are going to be looking at Bitcoin. I guess Bitcoin, just because of the way it's been setting up, thought would be a good idea to set up and use that kind of from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all the drawings that this chart has, just to make sure. Actually, let's try and see if we can find a Bitcoin chart that maybe doesn't have that many. Let's try Bitstamp. I don't think Bitstamp has anything. No, it doesn't. Okay, so we'll use this one for today. So we're using tradingview.com. I'm currently using the Pro account, and we are looking at the daily chart for Bitcoin to USD. Now, there's a few very important notes that we have to take into account when we're doing trending lines. Number one, a trend line will be formed when two or more points have been touched on the same line. So I guess set up two or more, and then for confirmation, we want anywhere between 3 or greater. The time frames that you can use the trending lines are any time frames. You can go anywhere from 5 minutes to daily to weekly. It just depends on how often you want to trade. So that's an important thing to note. And I guess the really important thing is that the trend lines that we set up help us to set up support and resistance lines to see where the coin is currently moving. So let's start with Bitcoin. Now, for the trending lines, we are going to use this tool over here, which is the trend line tool. And there's a couple of different ones. I like to use just the normal trend line. There's also arrows and there's parallel channels and things like that. But for today, we are going to look at the trend line. We might look at the horizontal ray as well, which are the two that I use the most. Okay, so we're going to quickly set up a trend line. And we're going to go from Bitcoin's highest. We're just going to do a few different examples today. and we're just going to draw it there. So according to our rule, we need at least 2 for setup, 3 for confirmation. And as we can see, this line was actually touched 4 times. So before I have people asking me, I'm not using the log scale. I know with Bitcoin we normally use the log scale, but just to make things, I guess, more basic and easier to understand, I'm just going to leave the log scale turned off for now. Okay. Now, what does a trend line tell us? A trend line tells you that there is either a support or resistance being set up for a chart. Now, right here, we can see that this was our first point, which was when Bitcoin hit 20,000 in December last year. Then we have our second point, which is here, when Bitcoin tried to break what now had become a resistance. Then we hit it again down here, just midway through March, and then we hit it again right here. So if I had been waiting for Bitcoin to, I guess, go past that line, like I could have been waiting around here, which is probably what we would have waited, because we had a dip all the way down to 6,000 here. This was early Feb. And let's just say we were waiting for it to cross that line to reach all-time highs again. Using that line will give you a strong, I guess, a strong confirmation on whether it's ready to keep going up or whether it's going to, stay down for the time being. Now, a few things to note with this line. We're just going to remove those circles for now, just so we make a couple of notes regarding the line. Now, when you set up your line, you should decide whether you want to go from the wicks or the bodies. Now, I've actually set mine on the bodies. Now, keep in mind that this bottom one I didn't use because I'm using the first 3. And I've used this top candle, which was the 20,000 candle. So that's where it's kind of coming from. And then I've used the body of the next candle. That's hit there and hit there. And then here. So if I was following that downtrend, so this is a downtrend line because we can see it's continued to go down the price, I would have bought around here. If I had bought there, then I could have made a nice 30% profit. Okay, so that's a downtrend, and that's a, I guess, a strong resistance lines to look at. Now, what's the great thing about having these downtrends is it allows us, about these trending lines, we can use it a few different ways. So if I stand on top of that line and do Control-C, Control-V, then now this is on a Windows computer, so I'm just copying the line, which I think you can also do by, here we go, by cloning it, and set up another line, say around here. Let's just use, it's just a rough line. What it allows me also to see is to make sure that while the Bitcoin is in that downtrend channel, that we aren't going to be going up yet, basically. So if you had been trading around these times, then you would have waited for that to have crossed that line. Because obviously all the way down here, we would have been looking at 3,500 and things like that. So that's one way. It allows us to chat up channels. So that's important. Okay, let's get rid of that line. Now, the other really important way to set up the trend line is not only up the diagonal one, but the straight one. So I'm just going to use the horizontal line, and I'm going to set up a line. I just change that one to yellow as well, and it's disappeared to yellow, just so we can keep it persistent. Consistent, persistent. Okay. Now, the idea of, and it's completely disappeared. I don't know what. Let's see if we can go back and draw it again. There it is. So the idea of having this line here is, so this time I'm using these, I guess this wick, which was from back in the 5th of Feb. We can see that it bounced off that line. Now these lines we call support or floor. People have different names for it. That yellow, just put that right in the middle. And then we also have the top version of those lines. Let's just say we draw that one about there. And those are called resistance or ceiling. I guess the idea of trying to use these terminologies is allowing you guys to maybe understand as well when you're watching YouTubers or you've seen articles about it, so you can understand how this works as well. Now, okay, so we use our rule. We can see that it touched once over here, well, kind of twice, but considering it was 1 day apart, we'll say once there, did a very small bounce there, did another one over here, and now it's looking at a third time. So Bitcoin's currently sitting at about 7,147. So in theory, we could say we are waiting for another touch somewhere down there for it to bounce off again. Now, just remember with the floors, you may have wicks that bypass these floors, but the important thing is that the candles close above that floor. Now, the more times that line is touched, that support, that floor, the stronger it will become. So while some people believe that Bitcoin will go down to $4,000, $5,000, $3,000, I am hoping that this support will be strong enough to hold Bitcoin and won't let it go down. Now, keep in mind that this is just one indicator. You know, the trend lines is one indicator. Your volume is an important indicator. Now, we mentioned in one of our other videos, the RSI is an important indicator, and we can see that's currently reaching 29 at the moment, or 30. The MACD. So they're all important indicators. So this, like there may be people that trade using only these indicators, but I believe it's a good idea to use, to use it, I guess, in conjunction with a few other indicators. Now, if we do the same for the top, we can see that we have the line touch there. That was on the way up, kind of briefly. Then we had a touch here. Now, here I can't really say that it touched in the, well, it kind of did. There's kind of two, when it was on the way up and it was on the way down. Just put it there because that candle did kind of close. And there's another one here. So right now, which I hadn't realized where I drew the line, but it's at 9980. So we know that 10,000, or we believe that 10,000 is a pretty strong psychological resistance. We were hoping that this pattern that we had here would have allowed for it to cross. But as you can see, the volume here just wasn't high enough for it to have surpassed that strong psychological resistance or ceiling that we have. Whereas in here, we had a huge spike in volume, which allowed it to get momentum, cross through that, reach that 11.8 resistance, which if we use our theory, we can see that that line's actually been touched 1, 2, 3, 4 times as well. So once we get this momentum returned and it does break the resistance, we will have another strong resistance at about 11.8. Okay. Let's get rid of all these lines. I'm just going to draw a few more. Actually, we'll do one more example. And we'll just, what I might do is I'm going to bring it down to the 343. And we are going to look to see, so that was on a much higher time frame. That was on the daily. Now, let's just say we had been trading around here. And so for those of you who are following the boss method, we'll turn that on and we'll see what that looks like. So as you can see, we had some pretty strong momentum moving up over here. So let's just say we've seen this, we've seen it kind of double, it's kind of touched these lines a few times. This is 6.5, so that was that line we had drawn before. And then we see this huge spike in volume and it starts going up. That's when we can draw an uptrend. So if we come back over here and use the trend line, I can see that that line, I'm currently using the wicks for this one. I can see that that line has been touched 1, 2, and 3 times. And now if we draw a channel, we can see that it continues to be on an uptrend. And then if we had given that line some continuation, we would have seen it broke down slightly, then continued the uptrend, and then, as we can see, it broke quite dramatically. And those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at in our next video. Just things like, the head and shoulders patterns, the inverse head and shoulders, there's a few flags in there, the pennants. So just a few different bearish and bullish patterns that can allow you to, I won't say forecast because we don't have a crystal ball. I would say just analyze the chart and just get a good idea on where it's at and where it's going to go. The last one that I will quickly show you, and this is one I've been using quite a bit lately. Just going to jump into another chart. Trying to think of a chart that I may be looking at. I think pay was one. Nope. So the reason I wanted to show you one is because there's another kind of, I guess, trending line. Here we go. Here's one called a horizontal ray. Now this one isn't relevant anymore, but we'll use it as an example. It's just this one right here. So it's called horizontal ray. And the reason I really like this trending line is that it actually shows me with price. And if you are watching a few coins, then you can just open up the chart. And for example, here I know with the boss method, it's currently underwater. But before all of this area happened, I was obviously trying to see if this was going to break this line. So I'd drawn this line, so it's another trending line. So this would be the resistance or ceiling. I'm just going to move that to the right so that we can read it. Now, the reason we have a resistance of ceiling, so I saw it come down, and I think I saw this spike here and thought, and I haven't bought this coin for a while, so I hadn't gone in, but I saw, so this is what the things I would have looked at. I would have seen this kind of turn around. The 77 was turning around, the 231 was flatlined, but the 77 was still on a downtrend. So what I was doing was I was trying to see if that resistance was going to hold and whether I was going to jump in or not. So as we can see, there was another touch of that resistance again, and then it just continued to go sideways. Then we had, now normally when I draw these lines, which is something I'm following, waiting to jump into, I actually wait for the candles to close. So this candle closed above, but I wait for confirmation. So I would have waited for another candle up here. Then we can see it came back down again, went sideways again. Here we can see it touched the line again. So if this next line had closed up here, I would have gotten in. Then we see this huge dip, massive dip. Then there was a huge spike that also touched the line, but all in all, this chart is still broken. Not something I'll be looking to enter yet, but so using the horizontal ray, I believe it's called. Yeah, using the horizontal ray is another good tool to set up that trending line and to allow you to see the price and decide whether you will be entering a trade. Now you can even, if you wanted to, you could actually come back into that line and set up by just copy and paste that and set up another one, say here. I could have said, okay, so while the coin or the price is within this range, I'll continue to watch it. Once it breaks this line, then I no longer even want to watch this because it's broken. It's going to take a while to turn around. Okay. So that's all I have for you guys today. I guess it's really important that you trust yourself when you're trading. You know, I saw this quote today and thought was very relevant to our video today, and it's, I believe in analysis and not in forecasting. We don't have a crystal ball, and not everything that we chart using all the indicators that we use is going to be 100% accurate. At the end of the day is that you learn to read the chart. And by learning to read the chart using the different indicators, you can, I guess, better predict what the chart might do. That's still an if. Remember that our altcoins are very strongly based on Bitcoin and whether Bitcoin dips or spikes. Obviously, there's pump and dump groups, which means you can be in a coin and that could that could pump. But those are very risky, and as I've mentioned before, not something I would advise. But right now we are in a bear market, so use this time to familiarize yourself with the tools like TradingView, CoinMarketCap. There's a lot of great people out there doing some really good content for you to follow. And I guess This is just me throwing in my 2 satoshis to help you out, to empower you to trade yourself and not have to give away your Bitcoin for somebody else to do it. Remember, we've got our Twitter channel. Once more, we've got our YouTube channel. If you are new, please remember to subscribe. And if you like the content, remember to share it so that other people can learn about our trading tips as well. And always remember that we will be creating some new content coming up, and we'll be analyzing those different bullish and bearish patterns that you hear about and how we can use them to help us analyze coins. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening. Happy trading, everyone. Hope this helps. Good night.